So, welcome back. We're continuing on with our carving series on carving this little penguin. I like this guy, as I said before. They're very well received by most people who look at them, and a good portion of the people want to buy it. As I said in the last video, we are going to go with a slightly smaller one. I was working with the smaller version the last video, and I didn't like the way it was cut out because I had a difficulty with the nose coming out, and so I switched to a larger one, and so that's the one we're going to use. So I have the pattern here, and the pattern is relatively simple. I cut mine out of cardboard because I usually make more than one or two out of them. And so if I'm looking at the size of this is my sitting penguin, and I've got this one at 100%. That other one we were working with was 80%. And I can cut this out of a 2-inch block by 4 3/4. So if you got a 2-inch by 5, 2-inch around, 2-inch around by 5. Side profile is about 1 3/4 inches. And so if you lay this on your block and cut the front profile, I actually did it that way. And then if you turn that over and you cut the side, so you end up with removing wood all on all four sides. And if you're not comfortable using a bandsaw, a lot of people aren't, because they move at a very fast speed and they can be very dangerous. Always remember to read your safety features on your tools and to follow them. If you don't wear eye protection, that's something you ought to start doing soon. And if you don't use ear protection, I would recommend the same thing. Anyway, I did this one, and if you'll notice that this side has a flat surface right here and nothing else flat. So when you cut this side out, or this side, whichever side you cut out, to make certain that you can cut out the front and back profile, make sure you save this wood right here. So when you make this cut in here and this cut out here, if the top of your block is up here, save that so when you flip it over, you can lay that wood down and you have a flat surface to do this. Otherwise, you're doing it with your bandsaw up and down, and it can be very dangerous. I would not suggest you do that unless you're very, very, very comfortable with your bandsaw, because they can get away from you. It's actually more dangerous than a table saw, because the table saws now have those saw stops, something that existed well after I had my accident with my hand. But my hand still functions, and yours will too, as long as you take the safety precautions that you need to take. Anyway, I want to introduce you to my little friend and your little friend, and one that you will use over and over and over and over and over. It's probably the most important tool in your inventory, because many times you draw something on there, then you carve the line off and you forget to draw it back on, and pretty soon you remove something you shouldn't have done. So my suggestion to those of you that are just starting out, and to those of you that are very familiar with that, is to use a pencil. Now I know a lot of people say, well, it gets carbon all over my carving. Most people wash those anyway, and if you're relatively careful with it, you're not going to get a lot of that carbon on there. So one of the first things I do is I draw a center line, because I want to know, for symmetry purposes, where my center line is. And all I do is roughly just freehand a center line right down the middle of the drawing, so that it keeps me relatively oriented on side to side and front to back and top to bottom. And generally I do that on all four sides, so that I know if I'm looking at something that is an animal body or a human face or roughly anything else I carve, I know that if this penguin is going to be completely rounded on all four sides, I know that I can round it all the way around. So anyway, we got our center line in. The next thing I want to do is start adding in some of the features, because if I know where everything goes, it makes it a whole lot easier if I make a mistake and take off more wood, what I need to do. And so one of the biggest features you're going to do is the feet. And the feet are roughly with a V cut or a V shape out of the middle. And so if we just draw that in there, making sure that both sides are roughly the same side, and you can tell that I didn't. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to make his left foot, what I'm looking at on the right side, to be about the same size on both sides. So that way when I take out this wood in here, these feet are going to be about the same size. So I know the bottom's going to come down here. The bow tie is going to be right below the beak. And this is where the beak is going to be. And if you'll notice right there, that point right there is corresponding to that point right there. And so I would make sure that I had a rough penguin beak. I don't think I've ever seen a penguin with a beak this big, but you know what? As they say a lot of times in caricature carving, this is my carving and I'm going to do what I want. Here's the ball up here on the hat, the Santa hat. Right below that, almost touching, and touching if you want because it makes it easier. This little part right here, when you get to paint, that red part is hard to paint. So my suggestion to you, if this is the first time you're doing this, make sure that the bottom of your hat comes across there so that you can, when you paint the white here, you can also paint the white here. And so we'll just connect those lines across on all four sides. This gives me an indication of where things are going to go. And I have the artistic license and the freedom to change that as I go along. So I've got his hat drawn in, and if you can't see that, I like to take a extra fine point Sharpie marker. I use these in my classroom and I use them in carving a lot. And I'm just going to go over my drawn lines so that I can make sure I can see them. Makes it easier for you to be able to see them on the video as well. And make it easier for me to know where things are going to go. I don't do abundance of drawing on these things. I draw the gross anatomy, something I learned from Harley Refsall in his classes. He talks about putting in the gross anatomy where everything is roughly going to fit, and then you can make adjustments as needed along the way. I want to give space here for the bow tie, and I'm just going to put a square block in the middle. And then the bow tie, because this part of the wood is going to come off, that bow tie will end up somewhere up here. So I'm going to just angle a line down so that I look like I'm faking the bow tie being there. So if I draw it with my black marker, then I've roughly got the bow tie and I can put in the top. Let me redraw that line so they kind of match here. And up here, the bow tie is going to go up here like that. This wood will come off. The strap that holds the bow tie, most men who wear a real bow tie have a strap that goes around the neck. Somewhere about in the middle of that, we'll draw some lines to approximate where the strap is going to be. And all of these are just giving us room on our carving to put the things we need to put on there. Eyes are going to go up here somewhere. Nose, and then flippers, not nose, beak, and then flippers are going to go down somewhere here. The feet are going to be about like so. So we'll draw that line in, and then we know we're going to have a separation between the feet and the bottom, somewhat like that. We'll worry about that when we get there. So this helps me know where things are going to go and where they're supposed to be, so that anytime I'm carving, I don't have to really think a lot about where the gross anatomy goes. I know where it goes because I've drawn that in. And so we'll just take the simple time to put these rough indications in so that I can make sure I know what is going where. That's one of the most important things about carving, is knowing what goes where. In fact, a lot of carvers, when they first start out, have problems with going from a 2D picture or even a pattern like this. They have a hard time going from 2D to 3D. I hear a lot of carvers and a lot of new people who just started carving say, I just can't see it. What I always tell people is if you can draw it, you can see it. I think it was Walt Disney who said, if you can dream it, you can build it. And in my opinion, if you can draw it on your wood, then you can generally see where it is. Left off a couple of things here. One of them, which is the bow tie. Bow tie is going to come right here. So I want to leave that indentation there so that you can see where the bow tie is going to fit and how thick it is. We'll do the same thing over here. And I think that's all the drawing we need to do at this point. We know that a lot of this is going to come off, and as we take off a line, we can add more lines. And it makes it easier for us to be able to see where we're going if we take off a line and then we put a line back on. So, the first thing I usually start with is with a knife of some sort. This is a Helvy knife that I bought some years ago. You can see that I've sharpened it quite a bit from its original. This is the first knife I ever bought, and the blade is kind of been worn down over the last 10-15 years. Part of that is because I didn't know how to sharpen at the beginning, and so I took more metal off than I needed to. But it's a Drake knife, and it's one of my favorite knives. I like it because this blade is very flexible. I'm not sure if you can see that flex there. This blade is flexible and allows me to, when I make a curved cut, I can do that. I curve that knife blade, and because it's thin this way and it's thin this way, it makes it easier for me to be able to turn that carving. It's one of my favorites. It's probably the first knife I ever bought. I bought this, I bought a fishtail gouge, I bought a U gouge, and I bought a V-tool. And those are the 4 tools I started out with. And in reality, those are really only the 4 tools you need. Don't tell my wife that, because she thinks I need every tool I've bought, because it's exactly what I told her. But in reality, you only need a knife, straight blade, you need a V-tool, and you need a gouge. And the addicting thing gets to be after that as we start adding a big gouge and a little gouge and everything in between, and a big knife and a little knife and everything in between. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with having more tools. You can never have too many knives. A lot of times I don't like to stop in the middle of carving to sharpen, to hone. And so as this gets dull, I'll reach in my bag and I'll grab another one. That works perfectly for me because I have several tools. And I've bought some of them over the years from estate sales or from other carvers. I've been gifted some, and I've bought some of my own. Anyway, I have plenty, and I like using all of them. I have some friends who talk about carving, and they only carve. I carve this whole thing with a knife. And I'm going, well, why would you? When you have all the tools, why would you only use one knife? My opinion is, just because we know how to plow with a plow, why would we use a mule still yet? So use the tools that you have available to you. So again, the most important tool when you start off with is a pencil like this, and then a marker to mark it. So again, these were cut out of a block of wood that's 2 by 2. This one's a little over 2. And that doesn't matter because I'll remove some of this wood on the side. But 2 by 2 by roughly 5-inch tall piece of wood. And if you don't have a good bandsaw, as I said earlier, have someone cut it out for you. You can cut it out on a scroll saw. You can actually do it on a square piece of wood, and that would work perfectly. This is some of the lightest and whitest and best grained wood I've ever seen, and it carves very easily. I'll be honest with you, I buy wood from a lot of places, and our local woodcraft store supplies me with some good wood, but I have to look hard to find the best. This is some of the best, and it's wood that I got from Heineke Wood Products up in, I want to say they're Minnesota, but it could be North Dakota, I'm not sure. Could even be Wisconsin. It's from the Northern Plains. And when you look for basswood, you want to look for the lightest stuff, lightest in color. You want to look for the lightest in weight, and you want to look for the softest wood that you can find, because what you're looking for is wood that has a good grain pattern and is soft enough to carve. The grain pattern, I'm not sure that you can see, but rarely ever do you get a piece of wood that's cut straight from the tree, straight up and down. So there's a little bit of curve to the way the wood grain grows. And the problem with that is as you carve one side, it comes off real easily. You carve another side, it wants to split on you. That comes with experience. You just have to practice with it and play around with being able to read the wood. One of the most important things to remember about wood carving. Anyway, we've done our layout. We've laid out our major gross anatomy. We've got a good start on where we think things are going to go, and we're ready to go. And I think we'll tackle carving in the next one. So till that time, I hope you have a good time carving. Stay safe, be careful. It's okay to stop when you're tired. It's okay to stop when you're not sure what to do next, but just be extremely careful with what you're doing, and this will pay you back more ways than you can imagine. This is Carving with Eric. I hope you have a little bit of fun with me. I'm going to have fun. I always tell my students that I'm going to have fun. Whether you have fun or not, it's up to you. But if you're not having fun, you don't have the right attitude. And so enjoy it. This is a hobby. This is fun. Enjoy it. If it's not fun, go do something else. Go paint. Go garden. Go knit like my wife does and crochet and sew. Whatever makes you happy. If you're not happy doing this, find a way to make it happy. Find a way to make it fun. Because this is your hobby and your life. And if you sit down and take time to do your hobby, it should be fun. If it's not fun, let's go do something else. When it stops being fun, let's go do something else. And come back when it's more fun, or go do something else that's going to give you more fun. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy learning. I've taken a lot of classes. But let's just have fun along the journey. I'll tell a joke every once in a while. I'll laugh at my own stupid puns. And I'll leave you with a pun before we leave. What's the difference between a hippo and a Zippo? The Zippo is a little lighter. See you next time.